Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for The Flash. Of course, as the title says, there will be spoilers in the second half, but of course, I'll let you guys know when we get to that. Also, as the title says, this is a 420 review, hence the baked sushi. Also, I don't have a Flash shirt, which is why I went with Miles, because he's the other guy who went across the multiverse this year in a much better film, if I'm being personally honest. Also, I just thought the Godzilla thing fit with this version of Barry. I was like, just something different. I also never wear this hat, so it's just like an excuse, honestly. And there was a lot of stuff, obviously I'll have to get to spoilers, but man, if you like Back to the Future and haven't seen this, the movie's decent enough that it's worth it just being a Back to the Future fan. And I got this bad boy here just because I just got it in, that's all. It's a 1/6 scale DeLorean. I haven't even taken the plastic off the front windshield. Like, it's amazing already. So I just wanted to have that back there because it fits with how much they actually end up talking about Back to the Future, which admittedly does give it a bit of a point because they do like some deep stuff that's like, it's not super deep, but most people won't really know it. And it's like, oh, I personally really love that. So just to get that out of the way, if you like Back to the Future, they do some stuff that's like, I really appreciate that. Also, there's a Gremlins thing in here that I thought was really funny. And it took me a second to figure out like why it was weird, but I really enjoyed that as well. But getting into the movie, not spoiler wise, as a random plastic bottle is popping, the CG's bad. I have to say that right off the top. Everyone says it, everyone's right. The CG is bad, and it's unfortunately in quite a few ways. There's a specific thing that's like a big focal point of the film. I can't really say exactly what it is, but that very specific thing, how the visuals kind of change around during that sequence, they don't look good. I've heard some people say Uncanny Valley, but it does have to be CG, and it's CG real people, but I don't think Uncanny Valley. I just think it looks bad. Personal opinion. There's also the two berries thing. In the trailer, you see all the shots where it's like, that's Ezra Miller, that's also Ezra Miller, and they stitch that together, and there are a buttload of shots where that's Ezra Miller, and that is somebody else, and it's Ezra Miller's voice, and also a very, very fake version of Ezra Miller's face. So it's really unfortunate because you'll be going through to be a bunch of shots where it's like, all right, that's actually two real human beings, that's Ezra Miller's face, that's actually Ezra Miller's face, and then it'll just be a random shot, and it's like, that is not Ezra Miller's face. And it's super obvious too. Like every time it happens, for me at least, it was really obvious. It was just like, that's fake, that's real, that's fake. And it was almost instant. As soon as you're just in a random sequence, it just ends up happening. So that was the case. The suit is also incredibly CG. I didn't like how the suit looked as far as the CG. I didn't like how the suit looked in general, if I'm being totally honest. They show it a bit in the trailer, but when you see him running and it's like you see the gold lines and everything, that's only when he's running. When he's not doing that, it's literally a full red suit. It has texture and stuff, but it's just that red color and nothing else. Like the lines are just like empty, and it looks really dumb to me when it looks like that, because I'm like, he doesn't have the Flash symbol or anything like that. He doesn't have, I mean, anything. Like honestly, like I said, it's like the lightning is going through the suit, that's why it looks cool. And then once he's not doing that, he's just in a red CG suit. He's not just in a red suit, he's in a red fake suit. Because even when it's literally like over his shoulder, I'm like, I know, you know, because you see all the behind the scenes footage of like all the MCU movies and stuff where they have just the gray, black and white suits with the circles on them. It's like, I can just tell that's what he's wearing, because even just the shot over his shoulder where it's focusing on someone else, I'm just looking at his shoulder and I'm like, that just looks really fake to me. Like no part, I'm sure at some point in there was an actual suit. But in all honesty, when like those first trailers came out and it was like, oh, the suit looks really bad in the CG, that's honestly how it looks to me. Like it's not as bad as like that very first shot where it's like them running. That's not really a great shot. It just really isn't, specifically for like the berries. But the whole time it's like, that's just a fake suit, and it looks ugly because it's just red. It's just plain red. It's like you can see the texture, which is like, you know, high definition detail, but it's like, it's just random textures on like this solid one color red suit, which, you know, the color is always just one solid red. But the point is that it's a Flash suit. It's supposed to have the gold going through it. Like, I don't know why they made it where the gold only goes through when he's running. When he stays in the suit a lot, like he stays in it enough for me to be like, why didn't they design the suit to just look cool without him running? Like it definitely came up where I'm like, it's just red and it looks fake. It just made it worse. I'm like, if it looked fake, but it was like, I at least like the design, that would be great. But it only looks good if he's actually in motion, because once he's not, it's just red. Like just imagine any Flash suit with none of the other colors. It's just a red suit. It's like, well, that's dumb. So I don't know why they did it that way. And also, unfortunately, the CG looked fake in that as well. So the CG for sure, it hit in like 3 different waves. Also, the suit design just made me not like the suit as a whole. So it doesn't really matter. Even if it was real, I would have still been like, I hate the suit because it just looks ugly if he's not running and it doesn't have the gold. It's just a red suit. I genuinely question, like, why did they think that was a good idea? He has like gold on his boots and stuff. Why didn't they think just make the whole thing like where the lines actually are just gold? That's just the color of the costume. So I thought that was really weird, and I thought it was an ugly looking outfit. Fortunately, the CG being really bad, worst part of the whole movie. I think the acting was fine. The story was fine. Notice I'm saying fine, not great. It was good. I could at least say good for sure. Acting's good. The action I think actually was enjoyable for the moments that we had like actual action sequences. CG may not have been the greatest during said sequences, but the actual motion and action of what they did, especially during the ending fight scene, I do think it was pretty sweet. So I like what they did with that. The story was fun. It was, of course, Flashpoint Paradox. Not as cool as the animated movie. I think everyone agrees on that. They just don't have all the characters. They had quite a few. They had enough to do like some of the really cool stuff, and it's weird that they didn't, because they could have, and I think it's just because it would have made the movie blow up even more. But it was still a very Flash-based story, even in the animated thing where there are way more other heroes. It was still a good Flash, story. So I thought that was interesting. I was like, they actually had, like, admittedly, what I would argue are like two of the most important characters to have different versions of. They have those characters within the universe with actors, and I'm like, that is super weird. And technically they both show up in this movie too. Obviously, not as much as they would have in that other version, but I'm like, they have the actors. They could have actually done some really dark stuff with it, but they don't. It's much more lighthearted. Definitely watch the animated movie because it's absolutely phenomenal. It's just really, really good. A lot of that I will of course talk about in spoilers, because they do some stuff that's similar to that, because obviously it's based off of the Flashpoint story. But some of the differences I definitely didn't like when it came to the story, and it was more so the amount of story that certain characters got, or their importance or lack thereof, I would say, in the story as well. So all of that I would say in spoilers, but I'd say it's worth seeing at least once. I don't think it was as great, like James Gunn was like, this is like one of the best movies ever. Tom Cruise is like, this is cinema. It's like an early 2000s comic movie. It's like a hair underneath maybe like the first X-Men movie. So it's still good. It's still definitely good, but it's not like I want to rewatch it. Plus it's like, it's long enough to where I started to feel it towards the end, where I was like, okay, now, I kind of get what's happening. Also, I was with my daughter, so her moving around a bunch probably made that happen as well, where I was starting to lose a little bit of the ending of like, they did the big action thing, and then it was like the explanation, which I was like, all right, I kind of know Flash, and all I needed was like the one thing, and then I was like, all right, I got it. So it already kind of lost me, because I was like, I understand the whole story. I'm good here. It's like, that's what happens when you watch like 9 straight seasons of the Flash TV show. So it's kind of just like, some things are just like a super, I don't want to say shallow, but it's like, it's a surface level version of what you get from the comics, especially this, because they didn't have much of anything to build off of, considering he only showed up in one other movie. But it's just like, okay, sure. And then the ending happens, and there's some more CG stuff, some cool, but all of it just bad. Visually, all of it bad, unfortunately. But they did some cool stuff for sure. And overall, I'm like, I didn't hate the movie at all. I would say if you are curious about it, if you like The Flash, I think you'll enjoy it. There's, at the very least, with Flash being, honestly, I would say like my favorite DC character. Especially growing up as a kid, I always loved super speed, and plus he was funny, so it was like, well, Flash is my favorite. Like, that's just how it was. It was like, he's got the power that I want, and he's funny. Yeah, why not that guy? So they definitely do some stuff where it's like, finally, at least on the big screen, because they've done everything on The Flash, which I recommend. It has its ups and downs, but the Flash show was good. You got to see a buttload of Flash powers that he actually uses all the time. We finally got to see that, at least on the big screen, some of those, and I was like, I can appreciate that. I don't know if it really matters much, because like, one and done, and then we'll see what happens in the future with the next version of Barry Allen, or if they do Wally West. I highly doubt Ezra Miller's coming back. Kind of has to be talked about, I guess, but I just don't see it happening. This movie wasn't that good to be like, just wow, Ezra Miller, like, whoa, that's someone to, well, in the sense he is, that is someone to look out for, I guess, but not in the way that they might want. So I don't see Ezra Miller coming back as the Flash again, because this movie didn't do enough. It's already bombing at the box office. It's good, but it's not like, holy crap, you just really got to see it. And also, Ezra Miller did a bunch of wild stuff. Why bring that person back? Just why do that anyway? So I don't think Ezra Miller is coming back as the Flash, and they don't need them to, because they can restart, and I think we'll be good. I think we'll be perfectly fine. It's fun to watch, but it's nothing spectacular. Honestly, I don't think there's probably like a joke or two. A lot of the Back to the Future stuff I'll remember from this movie, and that's honestly it. It'll be like, man, they did some cool Back to the Future stuff that I appreciate. And other than that, it'll be like, oh, I got to see this one cool thing, and I got to see that cool thing, and that's it. I don't think there's really, even the action sequences, I don't think they're the ones where it's like, I'm actually going to go back and watch them. Like they're good. There's one with Batman that I actually think I'd like to watch. And that's saying something. Like it was the Batman sequence. And I was like, well, that was actually pretty sweet. I wish we got more of that. That would have been nice. But that's it as far as non-spoilers. It's worth seeing, but you don't have to go crazy for it. It's good, but it ain't great. And you'll forget it. And then once we start over, if they bring Ezra Miller back, that'll be the craziest thing ever. But I think this is one and done, especially with it bombing. It's one and done. Don't even worry about it. Just see it when you see it. And it's like, oh, that was neat. Why didn't the lightning stay in the costume the whole time? Just gold lines. They had them in there. Leave them in there. Just saying. I like a good costume, and it wasn't good. Whole movie I had to deal with that. That's annoying. So, getting into full spoilers, if you have not seen the movie, maybe go see it, maybe don't. It's up to you. First thing I want to talk about, all the Back to the Future stuff. They reference Eric Stoltz as being the actor because for anyone who does not know this, of course, Michael J. Fox, he played Marty McFly. It's like, you know, one of the most famous things that he's ever done. And initially it was going to be Eric Stoltz. That's an actual fact. You can look all this stuff up. It's a whole thing. Eric Stoltz was Marty McFly for a couple of weeks, actually. There's like a decent story. Like they spent a lot of money. They always wanted Michael J. Fox, but he was doing Family Ties. Highly recommend watching Still. That's Michael J. Fox's documentary and stuff. It's on Apple TV. That was actually really good. So if you want to know anything about the wild story of what happened with Back to the Future, you can get it there. There's some of the facts are there. You might have to look around for some of the deeper facts. Of course, he doesn't go into it too much, but they have the stuff there. Like it's happening. So that was really cool. I love that reference, all of that. And you know, the dude who had like the tattoo on his leg, I was like, if you know we were in the same universe, we'd get along really well. We really would. But I thought all that was good. I love that his roommate had on a Gremlin shirt, and like I knew it was weird when I first saw it, and I was like, I don't know why that's weird, but something about that is off, that Gremlin shirt. And once they got into like all the characters and actors being different, I was like, oh, his shirt said nothing good happens after noon. Obviously it's supposed to be after midnight. And I was like, that's what they changed. I would love to have that shirt just as a random thing, but I highly doubt that they're gonna put merch out on that. They should though, because that would be actually really funny. But I thought that was cool. Other than that, the use of powers was nice. We got to see phasing on literally on a molecular level. I personally really appreciated that just because I love phasing. It's like one of my favorite things that he can do based on him having super speed. So I was super happy that phasing was a pretty big part of what they did in this, whether it was serious or through jokes. I thought that was actually a really good job. Even how it plays into our younger version of Barry kind of becoming Savitar. They don't call him that, but once again, based on 9 seasons of The Flash, it's like, oh, he's kind of that's Savitar. Like that's basically Savitar because it's an evil version of Barry. So I thought that was cool. And it was like, oh, the phasing kind of played into that because he wasn't good enough at phasing, so he phased through most of it, but it caught him in the arm, and it was like, oh, that's how he ends up getting all the little metal pieces. Like he's phasing, but just not enough. It's like he's good at it, but he can't do it all the way, so he keeps getting bits and pieces. And that was a really cool way to reveal that at the very end of the movie. When he had the first piece, I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then as soon as he came back the second time, he had like a couple sticking out the shoulder. I was like, oh, that's good. That was probably like a very good twist, because I'm like, I forgot that was even a thing. They do it super early because he travels through time, and then I just forgot because the movie doesn't talk about it until they get to the ending battle. It was literally the beginning of the movie, then the end. And then it was like when he was looking at the portals ripping, at first I thought he was seeing basically Savitar coming down the, like this, we'll call it the stairs again, but it was just the thing ripping. And then when I saw it rip, I was like, oh yeah, he got knocked out of the portal, you know, out of the time force, that's Power Rangers, out of the Speed Force by, you know, something early in the movie. What was that? So it finally reminded me at the very end of the movie when it came back, and I was like, all right, I can appreciate that reveal. It was a nice little twist. You know, I'm sure a lot of people guessed it, but I just assumed because it happened so early that it would just be something totally different. I wasn't expecting it to be, you know, a time loop thing. So I thought that was cool. I was like, all right, that's actually a neat way to do that, because I wasn't thinking about it, because admittedly, it literally is at the beginning and end of the movie. So you won't really think about it much anyway as you're going through all the crazy stuff with Batman, Supergirl, Zod coming back, all that stuff. So, you know, they do that on purpose. Like, here it is in the beginning, and then you forget because the rest of the movie happens. So I was like, all right, that was a neat little twist. I appreciated that for sure. All the stuff with Batman I thought was pretty cool. Also very funny, like him pulling out the flip phone to do the code, him pulling out the actual measure and be like, you know, how much do you guys weigh? So I thought that was actually pretty fun. I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. So, excuse me, I liked all of that stuff. I liked, excuse me once again, I liked everything with the phasing. I thought that was really funny. The very first sequence of young Barry getting his powers, definitely hilarious. The mocking Ezra Miller's run, absolutely great joke. I will always remember that. That'll definitely be one of the things I remember forever. When he did the thing and he was just running and looking like a moron, I was like, that joke I appreciate more than I think anything else outside of the Back to the Future references and the whole film. I was like, that I appreciated the most because I thought it was really funny. I was also shocked that Barry loses his powers, so they actually go through that process of him teaching young Barry and then him not getting his powers back until like halfway through, and they do it just like they do in the comic / animated film where he's, you know, in the chair and everything. And I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. I just assumed they would both have powers like the whole time. And it was like, no, he loses his powers, young Barry gets powers. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. I thought that was pretty sick. So I love the way that they handled that. And then Batman was cool. Supergirl, I would say I had a bit of a problem with because I didn't like how much they touted, like, man, we really need Superman. Like, you know, some people mention this and I feel the same way, where when Supergirl came into the fold, like Flashpoint, the whole point of Flashpoint is like, you like, things are just bad. Like, it sucks, Barry, you know, run back, let your mom die. That's how it has to be. But I felt like the way it was so hardcore and like Superman, Zod is here, so that makes it very specific to Superman. We have to get Superman because Superman was the only one that could do it. I was in Metropolis when Superman was doing that thing. All of this Superman stuff, Supergirl shows up, and it really felt like she got like 20 to 30 minutes of the whole movie, and that was it. And I was like, even for it not being Superman, which, you know, we all knew was going to be the case, even with that being the thing, she just didn't play a role. And it was like, I thought it was weird that they hyped it up so much. Like, I almost feel like it should have just been more natural, but, you know, I think that was just their way of doing, like, adding to the tension, where it was like, holy crap, you know, Zod, and that puts kind of a rush on things. But I felt like they should have come up with something else, because tying it so hard to Superman, it was just weird. Like, no one exists except for Batman, and it's like, okay, so they're talking about Superman like 5 times already before he even realizes Batman's an actual person. And it was just like, okay, Superman's really important. I know that's their whole thing, and that's, you know, part of the story is, you know, let's find Superman. Like, we need Superman's help to kind of stop all this madness. And that's why I think if they just had spent the extra money and time to be like, hey, what if we actually went with, surprise, surprise, Aquaman and Wonder Woman, who actually have a rivalry. We have actors for both. Why not just actually make that? Like, I know it would cost more money, but I genuinely feel like it would have been worth it way, way more to actually have the characters in that universe and just do it that way, where it's like, it doesn't have to be as dramatic, where, you know, especially if you watch the animated movie, it feels like everything's already fallen to chaos. It could be the beginning of the war. It could be something as simple as that. It could still be a battle between the Atlanteans and the Amazons, and just do that actual story. You got the actors, just do it that way. And it doesn't have to be so heavy where it's like so much talk about Superman. And like I said, I know the point is that the world fails, but it was just so weird to be like, let's really drive it home. And it does make it weirder because, of course, all the Henry Cavill stuff, naturally. And I'm curious how they would have done that anyway, because the whole point is him being emaciated and all that. But it does make it a little bit weirder. But even just in the context of the film, I was like, this doesn't work. Like, they're driving it so hard that it's Superman. And it's like, that's just not really the point. Like, it was almost, you know, like everyone talks about like, oh, from the trailers it seemed like it would be Batman's movie. It kind of felt like it was Superman's movie half the time, because they're talking so much about how great Superman is. And it's like, if it wasn't so insanely tied to, like, it's Zod, it's Superman, it's Metropolis flashbacks, all this stuff is so intrinsically tied to this character, it wouldn't seem weird that Supergirl doesn't get a lot of time, because the whole point is no one gets time. Everybody's dead anyway. Batman gets the most time because that's who we find, you know, in the comic and animated movie. But it's just like, this is weird. They obviously can't use Reverse Flash because they didn't have an actor for that. That was way too early, so they couldn't go that deep with it. But it was just like, man, you got the actors, like, why make it so Superman focused? And I find it weird that they would have done it. Even if they had Superman, I still feel like that would have been a weird thing to focus on. But it's just the way they did. You know, they used what they had, but I'm like, man, they could have they had the actors. If they just spent more money, I feel like this could have been the greatest movie. Like, just about all the actors, obviously the whole Superman thing being whatever, but everybody else could have been in it. The stuff they did with Batman, that was great. Wonder Woman showing up in the beginning, I was like, I surprisingly love all of this. Like, if this is what we had from the beginning, where it was like, hey, maybe here's a cameo at the end of the thing, and it's like, oh, they're in the world, they may not have helped here, but you did get two heroes fighting together. That's pretty sweet. Like, that's a cool thing. You went to Flash and then you went to Batman. You know, a third character shows up at the last second, which I guess they kind of did that with Batman v Superman, but not in a super cool comic fun way. But if we got that, where it's like, yo, here's a little cameo and then a cool, you know, funny joke, you know, the lasso of truth joke, that would have been great. Like, man, I wish we really got that. Plus the violent Wonder Woman that we got in the Snyder Cut. I really love that, because I'm like, that's what I want. That's what I wanted for Wonder Woman, because people don't know how violent she is. That's the thing. Like, they toned that junk down. And when that Snyderverse came out and she threw that man and his brick hit the wall, or his face hit the brick, and he died, I was like, that's what I want to see. Who knows if that's going to happen, but it is what it is. I wish we got more cameos and more fun-loving, Justice League, kind of like how we had in the very beginning of this. But I also wish they just utilized Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa and just had them fight, or at least have that warring thing as a part of the main story, instead of it being so heavily focused. It could have just been, let's get Superman, because then we can rally the troops in a sense, especially with him being so young. He could try to do that with his the younger version of himself. But it was like, okay, so tied to Superman, and it just made it feel weird that it was so much dumping on, like, we need Superman so hardcore, and then even the super character they got, they used what felt like, like I said, like 20 minutes. It just felt weird for so much of the movie to lead up to not really using her that much, which I know they all die, but she still could have been utilized better before that, before that ended up happening. And I just felt like they talked so much about, the super character, that they just barely used her. And she had some good moments too, and I was like, man, it also sucks that if they're just wiping all this away, does she get to come back? Because I think the actress, I believe her name is Sasha Calle, she did a good job. I like the young angry, especially when it was like, the infant didn't survive. That was pretty hardcore, and I was like, okay, I like that's dark, and that was a short little thing. I did love that. I was like, I love that. That was the darkest thing we got, and I was like, I appreciate that, because that's how dark things really get. And then of course, the natural ending of them not being able to save them, and then Barry turning out to be the dark version of Barry / Savitar from the future. So that was a good job. And then a very emotional moment where he goes and he changes the stuff with the cans, which a lot of people point out wouldn't free his dad, because his dad got there just as she was killed. So it doesn't matter if he looked up and it took him an extra second, he was still just right outside the door. It would have taken him like 2 more seconds, less even, if you think about it, because he would have gotten there faster. So I don't know. So I thought that was weird. A lot of people were right about that. It was like, he still wouldn't have gotten away with that, because he was right outside when it happened. It wasn't like there was a couple minutes that no one knew what happened, or they just assumed within that window of him being there. Like, I don't know, but it was definitely weird. It wouldn't have done anything. And then in the end, we did get a post-credit sequence. It was funny. Jason Momoa fell into a puddle, a really deep puddle, and was like, nope, I live here, or whatever he said. And then that was the end. It was like, okay, cool. Hate the suit. CG is bad. But the story was actually fun. The story was fun. Worth seeing once. Definitely once. And that's about it. It was definitely funny, but the Back to the Future stuff and the really crappy like running joke that they did, those will be my 2 big things for sure in this movie. And of course, the little bit that we did get of Batfleck, because I literally cannot think of that man's actual name right now. But Ben Affleck, there it is. Him as Batman, I actually thought was cool. I love the motorcycle where it had like the 3 jets and it had like the side turn jets and stuff, and I was like, that's actually pretty sick. So I loved all of that. Him like grinding, sliding on the freeway and stuff and jumping between the cars. I was like, this is sick. Like, that looked really cool. The stuff with Barry having to save the kids and figure out a crazy way to do all that, that was actually really cool, even if the CG for the babies was horrendous. But all of that looked really good. Little cameo, like I said, was nice. And then the rest of the story was definitely fun and entertaining, but it just won't stick with you. And then of course, with them starting over the universe, this won't be one of the things where I'm just like, man, I wish we got more of that. I'm gonna think more, I wish we got more of that Wonder Woman from the Snyder Cut. And I definitely wish we got more team-ups from the characters that were jovial, but we just didn't. And that's really unfortunate. We could have had something good, but they had to be like, all right, here's one movie, and then here's basically the whole Justice League. They rushed it so hard, and it could have been good. The actors are actually really good in these roles. And that's another thing that sucks. I think everyone did a good job as their characters, even if the characters weren't great. I don't think many liked that version of Lex Luthor, but it was acted the way it was meant to be acted, even if we didn't like it. So that could have been changed and that would have been fine. But just about everyone else, it was like, I like all of this. All of this is good. The characters, the actors, everything's good. They just used it in the wrong way, and that really sucks. So I'm like, there could have been something here. There definitely could have. But we'll see what happens with James Gunn. New Superman movie, which apparently is supposed to have crypto, and I'm just saying that's gotta at least be like an 8 out of 10 is gonna have crypto in it. So, slight bias, but decent movie. We'll love to know what you guys think. I know this is a super long review, as they always are, especially if I'm high, but thanks for checking this out. Like I said, we'll love to know what you guys thought about this one, so please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. Of course, with this being, oh, it's not the last one. I keep forgetting. Aquaman 2 is coming out. So it's not the last one, but one of the last ones. The last time we'll see Flash, I imagine. What do you guys think? Like how does it, God, it's not the ending. It's so weird. All my questions are based on like, how does this end things out? Because that's what we thought it was for so long. And we still haven't seen anything on Aquaman 2 either. And that's supposed to be this year, unless that got delayed, with the writer's strike. No, I think that was already said and done. So I don't know when that's coming out. I think that's actually coming out this year. That might be in like 2 months. I genuinely do not know, because that's how weird things are right now with Aquaman. But would love to know your thoughts on what most likely will be the final appearance of the Flash. What you guys thought of everything that's happened as far as the DCU has been concerned, and the way they rushed it and just did a very unfortunate job to some very important characters. We'd love to know your thoughts on all of that stuff, the way they treated the actors as well as a big part of it too. So just all the madness of this entire insanity that has been bringing the DC universe to live action. What do you guys think about it? Because man, the animation has been great. Not lately, which is very unfortunate. That Tomorrowverse stuff, I kind of hate it. They've been jumping through it. They've been doing what they've been doing in live action in like the new animated universe. It's like the 3rd or 4th one, and they are just bum rushing it. It was just like the live action movies where it's like, okay, here's Superman's movie. It's like, okay, that's pretty cool. The next movie came out, it was like the Justice League already existed. And it was like, I would like to have seen the formation of that. I would still like a Flash movie, once again animated. Like, I'd like to see all the characters still form, even if they're new. If I don't kind of like them, like, I'd still like to see the new origins of every character. Like, every new movie comes out, it's like a new giant thing happens. Like the Justice League formed in between movies. Like 15 new Justice League members show up. Like Green Arrow, poof, he's in it. Martian Manhunter, yeah, we know who that is. I'm like, I'd like to know who that is. I know, but it's like, I want to see these new versions. So right now things are a bit rough. Some of the movies here and there are good. The Wonder Woman movie that they did, I really enjoyed. I hated the Superman movie. The first one that came out, I was so bored with that one, but I like the Wonder Woman movie. Actually, I think that was the Flash movie. Wonder Woman was just the one I think of, but that was technically a Flash movie. He traveled between dimensions, so that was actually good. But it focused on like the Justice Society, so it wasn't just a Flash movie. But that one was actually pretty good. I liked the Green Lantern one because it was dark and different, but the ending I was not particularly happy with, because I was like, oh, so that character's just gone forever now. Also, I'm pretty sure that was the first movie he became a character, so I was like, they're just doing some stuff that I'm not the biggest fan of. So they can just wipe everything, like live action, animation, do another super quick flashpoint in the animation and start like the 60 universe, because I'm not liking this one too much. They're skipping too many things, so it's unfortunate. Like, you could always just be like, man, but the animated movies, top tier, god tier even. And right now I'm not feeling the same way about that, and that's really unfortunate, because that was always what you could go to, like, man, live action sucks, but these movies, that's where it's at. Not right now, not to me at least. I'd love to know your thoughts on that too, if you're even that deep into it. If not, obviously I'm just rambling and you probably cut this off anyway. But if you got to this point, I really appreciate it. Like I said, I want to know your thoughts on all things DCU, DCEU, when all this stuff comes out. Blue Beetle, I'm actually looking forward to that. Huge bias once again. Young Justice did that to me. They made, like, I don't really know a lot of the Blue Beetle characters and stuff, but Jaime got like a whole effing storyline in season 2. It was like he was like the main dude for season 2. So huge bias. I want to see that do really well. Plus they do the whole like full-on Power Rangers moment at the end, and I was like, I'm in. That's all. Hey, I'm good. I like the actor, obviously Cobra Kai. So I was like, hey, I got some super bias-based reasons to want to see this movie, but hopefully it does good. That's definitely my hope. We'd love to know your thoughts on all things DCU, DCEU. What you guys thought about the Flash ending? I didn't think it was that great. I won't spoil it, but it was like, these characters are really fast, and these characters aren't really fast, and then it was like half a second. Just saying, that's all I need to say. Could have been better, but still ultimately enjoyed it. The suit, the final villain, that was a great suit though. That was 100%. I was like, if they just put like a helmet on that dude, 100%, that was a Power Rangers costume in like the perfect way. I absolutely love that costume. So that was probably my favorite thing. Anyway, that's the Flash TV, movie, all that good stuff. End of a Flash era. Very interesting, but we'll love to know your thoughts. So please put them down in the comment section below. Sorry for my super high ramblings, but of course, thanks for watching.
You hungry? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. You hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. Like I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Like I'm Shaggy. Man, I'm hungry. Man, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Yeah, man. You hungry? Yeah.